Holloway's a pure warrior, and this fight's going to be defined by the precision, movement, and deft ability of Holloway against the aggression, forward pressure, and power of Gaethje. It sets up to be an amazing fight.
Always follow the money. That's what I always say. You always follow the money. Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
On Saturday night, we have UFC 300. The great Lou Finocchiaro joins the program now, VSiN contributor and voice of the Bout Business podcast. Is it safe to say, I mean, when you have Figueiredo taking on Garbrandt in the opening fight on the lower prelims, Lou, and he joins us on the Progressive Guest Line, it's probably safe to say this is the deepest card in the history of the sport.
Without question. First of all, guys, thanks so much for making time for UFC 300 this week. Your show is great, and I never miss it. This card has 13 fights, and it's populated with 12 current or former champions. It is as deep as can be. As you just pointed out, the opening fight, 2 former champions facing off against one another.
That is stacked, no doubt. Oh. That's very impressive. And as a casual fan, it has my attention from the get-go. One pushback, though, the hardcore some people were disappointed with the main event. Is that fair?
Yes, because the UFC was struggling and jockeying to find an apt headliner. And I think that in their zeal to get headliners, there's been some compromise to a degree in one of the fighters taking that fight.
What do you want to do with the main event then? Pereira, right now listed on the screen as $1.30 favorite against Hill.
Pereira open -150, -155. He comes up from the middleweight division where it's a miracle he could even make that weight. He's a monster at 205, the current champion. Hill, the former champion, playing basketball last July, ruptures his Achilles tendon. Okay? So 8 months later, he is on this card. Now, at the end of February, he's planning on trying to make it back for UFC 301 in 6 weeks, okay, at the end of May. But because there was trouble with the UFC trying to get apt headliners for this card, they approached Hill and they made him an offer he couldn't refuse, and he took the fight. He's had ample time to prepare. However, he's in against a killer in Pereira that's a elite world-class kickboxer that's going to attack his legs. And 8 months after an Achilles, he's not going to kick his Achilles, but he's going to attack that calf. And the calf on that leg, to me, it seems irresponsible to believe that Hill is 100% after 8 months after a ruptured Achilles. And it's foundational to my handicap. And therefore, in a fight that if both guys were 100% would probably be lined, at least by me, as pick'em, I have to go with Pereira based on the handicap of the leg.
You sold me. Yeah, great breakdown. You never do this. You like Turner. He's 235 here currently at Circa. You think it should be higher? Is this a straight bet? Do you recommend the audience, if they don't like the favorites, parlay? How should we attack this? And also state your case for Turner, please.
Yeah, favorites running a little better than 64% this year in the UFC, which is a couple ticks higher than they usually run. That has little or nothing to do with this fight at 155. Moicano, traditionally a 145-pound fighter, moved up a couple years ago, has had some success in the division, and he's had some success talking trash and learning English and catching. He does a podcast, so he's somewhat popular, and this was the last fight put on the card. He fights a guy in Turner that's 4 inches taller, has a 4-inch arm and leg reach advantage over him, and is 6 years younger than him. On top of it, Turner is a deft power striker, knocked out Bobby Green in his last fight, comes into this one, and Moicano is somewhat chinny and very, very reliant on having to get into the grope, to the clinch, to the clasp, and take this fight down. and Turner is arguably a man with a 170-pound body fighting at 155. To me, this is one of two fights that are very one-sided, and I think Turner is able to keep this at distance and light Moicano up as he tries to come in to engage.
Okay, I think Gaethje and Holloway is fascinating beyond belief. It's the third on the main event anyway. Should Gaethje be laying this big of a price in your opinion, and how do you want to approach this fight?
Gaethje's the legitimate 155-pounder, and he knocked out Poirier at 155 to earn the BMF belt. Now, Holloway, who's never been finished in the UFC, moves up from 145 to take this fight. Normally, I'd have a raised eyebrow about that. However, Holloway did this once against the aforementioned Poirier, had little success, and this time he's taken a good 7 to 9 months to prepare his body and get ready for this. Holloway's a pure warrior, and this fight's going to be defined by the precision, movement, and deft ability of Holloway against the aggression, forward pressure, and power of Gaethje. It sets up to be an amazing fight. One lined at 4.5, a slight bit of juice to the over, and a fight that I believe Gaethje probably wins via the visuals because of his power, but that's not where I'm going with the fight. I'm going to go to the fight goes to decision, currently available DraftKings plus 100.
Okay. I know you're big into weigh-ins, and a lot of times they can get you off a fight or change your mind on a fight, but before the weigh-ins, you've changed your mind on the Sterling Kattar fight. Why, and who do you like?
Well, the reason I've kind of waffled on this one is that Kattar opened minus 120 in this fight. He is the legitimate 145-pound fighter, featherweight. Sterling, after being knocked out by Sean O'Malley in his last fight at 135, moves up. Now, I'm not worried about that because Sterling was compromised in that fight, in my opinion. I think 145 is the better weight for him. The issue is that Sterling opened plus 100. Now he's minus 170. That's a little bit too much love, Paul. And as you know, I love when they said sit down, I stood up. And so I think Kattar, the legitimate 145er, has the ability to keep this standing because Sterling's going to have to try and drag it down to the ground. And he's got hands. In a fight that's ultra competitive. I'm beginning to lean to Kattar here.
All right. How about Kayla Harrison against Holly Holmes? Harrison is a minus 450 favorite. How do you want to attack this one?
Yeah, now this one is the handicap is all about the weigh-ins because Harrison is last fight is at 150. She's been a 155-pound fighter, and she's a large, structured gal, an ex-Olympic wrestler that's gone to Dagestan to wrestle with the men there. She is an absolute vice grip. However, she's never competed at 135. So the weigh-ins are critical to see how she looks. Meanwhile, Holly Holm knows exactly what is coming. And Holm has experience, and Holm is also a major step up for Harrison here. I believe that if Harrison looks compromised on the scales, I will use Holly Holm. If she looks good on the scales, then I probably am going to lean to Harrison via decision. I don't believe she'll overwhelm Holly Holm in a large cage. Holm, very much like Alex Pereira, able to move and is a very deft kickboxing talent. She's going to have to keep her distance and pick Harrison apart from distance. And so there's a little bit of moving parts on this particular fight.
Well, can you explain that? Like what's looking good? What looks rough on the scale? Like what could concern you?
Yeah, if the weigh-in process is 2 hours. If Harrison's on the scale in 10, 15 minutes, makes 136 pounds and looks great, she's a go. If it takes an hour and a half for her to get on, she shows up with sunglasses because her eyes are drawn and she looks a little weak and wan when she gets on the scale, then that's going to really tell me that she's had a hard weight cut. This fight is all about Kayla Harrison's weight cut.
Love the analysis. In about a minute here, your best bet on the entire card would be what then, Lou?
I have to go with Pereira. But if we maybe want to look at another fight, in the digital magazine, I wrote up Bobby Green. He fights Jim Miller, who was in UFC 100, 200, now 300. Miller's 40. Bobby Green is too fast, too athletic, and too powerful, and he's got a chip against Miller in this fight. I like Bobby Green a good deal, and I never come on and pitch this many favorites, but I try and read the card by card, and that's the way it goes.
Yeah, that number actually kind of stood out to me as well when I was looking at it, getting ready for your spot today. I'm like, Miller is really that price against Bobby Green? I'm not so sure about that. Follow Lou on X. He's at GamLou. It's the Bout Business Podcast. You're the best, pal. Good luck on Saturday.
Thanks so much, guys. Good luck to everybody.
Back at you.
Thanks,
Lou
Lou.
Finocchiaro on the Progressive Guest Line talking UFC 300.